Hey, mighty men of God, Joe Martin here with Real Men Connect, where we help good men become great men God's way by providing the real answers to real problems in the real world. Good morning. I say good morning. You don't know that this morning, but I'm here in my kitchen, um, getting ready to do my quiet time. And before I even got down here, after I prayed, God had pressed something on my spirit that I thought I'd shoot a video on. I just get me and a few other guys, 5 other guys. We just started a discipleship group where we meet in the mornings on Saturdays at 6:30 a.m. every morning, and we've all made a commitment to meet together for about a year, maybe a year and a half. Now, I know it's a lot of you out there listening. You say, "Wow, that's a commitment," especially when you look at our schedules. The ironic thing is that neither one of us wanted to meet at that time, but we made a statement, each of us individually, that we wanted to be discipled and sharpen each other that bad. We wanted to be better husbands, better fathers. So we committed our time to doing that on Saturdays. So it's easy to tell you that, and then you probably think to yourself, "Wow, Joe, that's really spiritual." I'm not that spiritual. I'm not there yet. I don't have that kind of hunger for God. But I thought I'd shoot a video to tell you how I developed that hunger for God. That I'm willing to get up every morning to spend quiet time with Him. That I'm willing to meet on a Saturday morning on my few days off at 6:30 every morning with a group of men who I haven't known that long, and be willing to do that for a year and a half until we're all discipled. It's because of my story and what happened to me when I was probably about, I guess, I had to be 27 years old, 26, 27 years old. It's right before I rededicated my life to Christ. One of my former students, and some of you probably know him now because I interviewed him on my podcast on episode 2, and it's John Ramos. And he had graduated from college, and he had invited me and my wife at the time and my young son, who had just born. He was about maybe 3 to 6 months old. And he invited us to his graduation party. Now, I had known John for several years as one of my interns, as one of my students, and came very close to him and his family. And, excuse me as I adjust the camera here. And when we went to his party, we got there kind of late, about 15, 20 minutes late, because we had a new child and trying to get the child ready. But when we got there, we noticed that there was a large congregation of family members and friends in the room. And what was weird about this party is that they weren't playing loud music and all this other stuff, but John was in the middle of the floor of his living room, of his parents' house, in the living room, surrounded by several his family and friends. So he was in a circle, if you can kind of visualize this in your head. And each person went around the circle speaking and talking about John and his life and the impact that he's made on them and their faith. And it went on and on about how he, led them to the Lord, and how his faith walk has been an example for them, how he would call and pray with them, how he would serve them. And the list kept going on and on. And now you have to understand, John had to be probably maybe 22, 23 years old at the time. So to see a young man have this type of impact on people who were 30, 40, 50, even 60 years old was very impressive to me. Well, we get around, we say our things about what John has meant for us and how he's blessed our family and how he's been a servant leader with us. Well, we're leaving his house, and we have a pretty long ride back to our house. His family lived in another city, so about 45 minutes. And my wife was driving, and my son was in his car seat in the back, and I was sitting in the passenger side. I wasn't doing physically well that day, and so she was driving. And as she was driving, she started talking about how great the party was. And she says, "Wasn't that an awesome party?" And I said, "Yeah, it was okay." But I was a little bit, downcast. And she noticed it. And so my wife asked me, she says, "What's wrong?" And I stopped and asked her a question. I said, if that was me and I was sitting in the circle and I had all my family and friends around, what kind of things would they say about me? And she started glowing, said, "Oh, they would say that you were a hard worker, that you provided for your family, that you were so super motivated, that you love working with students and you love being a teacher and you're so driven." and all these great, seemingly great things she said about me. And I looked at her and I said, see, that's the problem that I have. She said, what? I said, out of all those things you said that I was and that they said that I was, not once did you mention anything that they said about John. And not once did you mention the word faith, God, Christ, servant, not any of those things. And she didn't understand where I was coming from with these questions, but my question was, is that what I want to be remembered for? Is that what my life is all about? About getting several degrees, making a lot of money, building a large reputation, having a great job and a great career? Is that what I want to be remembered for? And I got to tell you, that day really messed me up because I didn't get any peace after that. And God knew what he was doing, because I had been a Christian since I was a kid, but I didn't have a personal relationship with Christ. And don't you know that just maybe a few weeks later, that's when John met me in my office and told me he had something to talk to me about. And he led me to the Lord on July the 17th of 1996 at 2:50 p.m. And my life had never been the same after that. Now, I'm not telling you I didn't go through my struggles and problems. I ended up going through a divorce after 16 years, struggled with pornography and addiction, lost half my wealth, and almost lost my son on top of it. But the point is at that moment in my life, I decided that I was going to be remembered for something other than what I achieved here on this earth. I wanted to build a legacy of faith for my family. I wanted to draw people closer to the God that I knew and loved. I wanted to be an example of walking this earth and looking like Christ in the flesh. So I'm challenging you today as you watch this video and I get ready to get into my quiet time. What I'm doing is not super spiritual, getting up every morning and being consistent about it. What I am consistent about is that I am serious about building a personal relationship with Christ that is an example for my son, for my now new wife, and my daughter. And I can tell you now that even in my mid-40s now, that if something was to happen to me and you now put me in that circle, they would say that he was a follower of Christ, that he loved God with all of his heart, mind, soul, and strength, that he was a great example of walking a life of faith. And that I can live with. Guys, if this video has blessed you, please share it with another guy. And I hope that maybe this has stirred you just a little bit, that you will want to make a commitment to be the man that God called and created you to be. You know, as we always say, that we're males by birth, but we're men by choice. So choose to be the man that God called and created you to be, because a male is a terrible thing to waste. Talk to you soon. God bless. Oh yeah, stay in his grip.